All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Investlete podcast. Today we have a very special guest. We have former USL goalie Brandon Miller. Not only was he a former professional athlete, but also an author, investment professional, and business owner. So super excited to have him on here. And yeah, Brandon, if you want to dive in a little bit about yourself and how you got into the game.
Yeah, interesting. I'm smiling. I genuinely forget that I wrote a book. Uh, so people have asked me about that and called me an author, and I forget about it. But yeah, thanks for having me on the podcast. Love what you all are doing, and definitely excited to dive in a little bit more today. Yeah, as you said, I played soccer for a majority of my life. Spent most of my life playing youth soccer, then college soccer at UNC Wilmington, and then went straight to playing 10 years in the USL. And had a good career, was pretty successful there, and had a transition out of playing into really wanted to focus more so on the business side of sports. I started my own company when I was out in Orange County, California, and it's a goalkeeper specific soccer brand called Prime Focus Goalkeeping, and really kind of a side hobby, a way to make a little bit more money and continue like utilizing my marketing degree and build my own brand. But it's evolved into a full-fledged business, which I'm proud of, and one that I still run today. And so that's where a lot of my focus goes right now. But I've been focusing a little bit more on like sports investing and how to help athletes in that transition and show the different opportunities that a lot of athletes are not maybe not aware of. And I myself am starting to learn more about. So yeah, I'm sure we'll dive into all of that later.
Yeah, no, that's all awesome stuff. I mean, growing up in the United States, everybody wants to grow up, play Division 1 of their respective sport. So I was a little curious, like, when did you realize, was there like a specific moment maybe where you realized that that would be a possibility for you?
Um, I wouldn't say really a moment. I just knew like when I was my sophomore year, early in my junior year, I was just playing really well. Compared to some of the other players in my age group. I always played. I never played on like the best team in this state, but we were always competing, and I knew that I was one of the better goalkeepers in the state. And, it was a different youth soccer scene back then, but there was a lot of conversation. You hear things or like comparing to these players and I had some opportunities to potentially go overseas instead of going to college, and I didn't choose that route, but I knew there was an avenue for me to play at a high level if I wanted to.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I know goalkeeper, I'd say, is a pretty underappreciated position, I'd almost say. So is there a specific reason that you wanted to get into that rather than an attacker like everyone wants to, or maybe play in the midfield, or something about goalkeeping that really just
No,
clicked for you?
not really. There's not a great skill. I just didn't like running, and I can be completely honest about that. There was a time where I was playing both, like in the field and doing goalkeeper as well. But then it got to a point where like we started doing you're playing longer games, you're having to do fitness and training and things like that, and it just wasn't for me. Um, so I knew what I was good at, and that was keeping the ball out of the back of the net. So I kind of focused on that.
Awesome. No, I appreciate the honesty there. And you said that you played D1. You touched on it briefly at UNC Wilmington, and we saw that you described it as having a lot of ups and downs in your journey there. So I guess what did that experience teach you that ended up pretty much giving you more responsibility on the field along with off the field?
It taught me a lot of resilience, to be honest. Taught me, it humbled me for sure. But it taught me a lot of resilience. Like, I, I wasn't a massive name coming out of school, but I was decently well known in my state, and I performed well. I was one of the better goalkeepers. But when you get to college, none of that really matters. And so I went into school. I remember the first day of practice. I was like, this is not that hard. And then I played maybe 3 games that year, 3 or 4 games. I spent most of my time on the bench, was not something that I was used to, and so it was me forcing. I was forced to change how I interacted with my teammates. How I trained, and you have to figure out how to be a good teammate. And I think my biggest turning point in college was my sophomore year. Again, I wasn't playing a ton. I thought everything I needed to in preseason, performed well, and I just didn't win the starting job the way I thought I would. And so spent most of that year as a bad teammate, like didn't have a great attitude. And my coach sat me down one day and basically just told me that you're like your attitude impacts the team, regardless of whether you think it does or not. And I mean, I was a popular player on my team. I had good friends, and you know, I was a magnetic figure, but I just wasn't in terms of attitude and how I was helping the team. I was being more negative than I needed to be, and so that's what really kind of changed my view on college, and then also looking forward in life of like understanding my impact, whether I am the star or not.
Yeah, no, it's definitely needed. Then, of course, you ended up having a pro career after. We could touch into that now too in the USL. And you started as the third string. And pretty much what kept you going? Because it sounds pretty similar to your college story where you had to work your way up to the top. So, what did you learn through that experience?
Well, I actually started as a backup. So I started as second string my first 2 years, and then I took a step back. And my third season, got a new coach, and yeah, I got injured the end of my second season, and so just timing wasn't great. So I ended up being a third string my third year, and so that was what really like drove me most of my uh, most of my career, honestly, is remembering what it was like to train every single day, play well, and not get the opportunity, even get recognized for how well I'm training and how what my attitude was like in training, but not getting the opportunity. I was on the bench maybe twice that year, and so that really propelled me for the rest of my career. It's the reason I wore 33. I was a third string goalkeeper my third year as a professional, and I used that the rest of my career to remind myself, like, hey, this is where you've been. That's somewhere you ever want to go again. And so, I think that was a big catalyst for some of my success.
Yeah. Jumping in here, I wanted to highlight a bit of your USL career. I know you had a pretty successful 2015 season. Was that like kind of the pinnacle of your athletic career in terms of like why you grinded throughout like your childhood and missing social events and like all this stuff? Like was that like the top of your career, would you say, or like what kind of defined maybe that moment?
I wouldn't. Honestly, I wouldn't. I think everyone thinks that, and I've had this conversation multiple times. Everyone thinks that like winning the championship is like it is that pinnacle moment. I remember when we won the championship, it was nothing but relief for me.
Yeah.
It was like, oh man, like we did it. It's done. I don't have that pressure anymore. And that doesn't feel great. And maybe it's not that way for everyone. But I've had a number of conversations with people who would like winning a championship isn't you don't get the feeling that you necessarily thought, and it's a little bit different as well. Like we played in the second division of the United States, there was no like promotion. We won a championship when we are going up to the first division. It was you won a championship, and here's a small bonus. Like so the euphoria lasted a little bit, but it is nice to always be able to say I'm a champion, and so there is some pride there in that. But I would say, I'm talking about like the pinnacle of my career. I think we're close to like the 2020 season where I really, I came off 2019 or came off 2018 where I didn't really play very much. I went back to being a backup because I got injured and it was just a tough season. 2019, I had a very up and down season. Partially because of me, partially because of the environment I was in, and in 2020, I set a goal of like I'm going to show the league who I am, and so uh, I feel like I did that. I was second in goalkeeper of the year voting. I was second team all league, so I didn't quite reach the pinnacle that I wanted, but I think I proved myself.
That's interesting how like I guess I really never heard that perspective of like I always just assumed I mean I didn't play sports in college. I played sports all my life, but I just assumed that I guess when you win a championship like that might be the pinnacle, but it's interesting to hear like a different perspective of like yeah, like it's cool, but like I guess the joy kind of like doesn't last as maybe as long as I thought. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still. Don't get me wrong. It's exciting. Like that
Yeah.
entire season, and especially the way that we did it. I think we lost one game in 40.
Yeah.
Like, we were a very dominant team. We were a great group that was put together, and we were very close. And it was a fun ride. But it just wasn't the trophy lifting ceremony and all that
Yeah.
stuff was cool, but. It did not quite hit the highs, and I think a lot of it was the pressure that we had. Like we were
Hmm.
we were the undefeated team for most of the season. We didn't lose until like August, and that was the only game we lost all season. Like we were expected to win the championship, and
Hmm.
so when we did it, it was like Phew, we did that instead of like, especially with the way the championship game went, like we almost lost.
Hmm.
Probably should have lost. And so it was more so relief of like, all right, we didn't let ourselves down. We didn't let the city down. We didn't, we met expectations. And so that was the biggest thing.
Are you still like I've heard like this like championship camaraderie of like all championship teams are like super close now and still talking to group chats. Is that still like active or not so much?
I would say from that team, I mean, I still talk to a number of those guys. Yeah. I mean, some of them are still playing.
Mhm.
Some of them are coaching. Like I still talk to a number of those guys. And yeah, we're still reminisce on the 2015 season.
Yeah, that's sweet. So yeah, I mean, I kind of want to start transitioning to the business side. I saw a post that you made on LinkedIn about like kind of the state of the USL, and like where the league is going and like how like the current state of it now. I kind of wanted you to maybe elaborate on like your thoughts on where not only the USL but maybe like American soccer is going as well. Obviously, the World Cup's coming here and there's a lot of buzz there, but your personal viewpoint, like how are you kind of viewing maybe the league and how the game is growing overall.
Yeah, I think there's a massive opportunity for soccer in the United States. You got the 2026 World Cup coming up. Um, Huge opportunity to grow the game in the country and just build a ton of momentum. There's already a ton of momentum around the sport, but just really accelerate things. In terms of the USL, I came into the league in 2012, and it was a much different league than it is in 2026 now. And so I appreciate the growth of the league. I'm excited about the growth of the league, and selfishly, I want to be a part of the growth of the league. I've looked at a number of USL deals in terms of ownership, and that's something that I want to do at some point. But there's still shortcomings from the league perspective, from an ownership perspective, and so those like have to be addressed if you want to be a top tier league. And so that's where I come from. Of like it's I feel like very much you can be a part of a system and also criticize the system, and that's necessary for growth. And so, as someone who has been a part of the USL, was while was playing, criticizing the USL for certain things that they were doing, like it's necessary because if that's not the case, then you're not necessarily going to get the standards that you need in a professional environment in a league like the USL that is you know, growing pretty rapidly right now and has grown really rapidly and it's definitely increased in professional standards from 2012. Things are totally different, but just because things have gotten better doesn't mean they are where they need to be. And so there still is a lot of room for growth from a player side, an environment side, from an ownership standard side. Like there's plenty of growth. And so hopefully all of the sides can understand that and like it's going to be a give and take, but at some point we all want the best for the USL. We all want a great ecosystem that can provide professional environment for thousands of players, and like that requires a lot of sides to be uncomfortable and make decisions that they may not want to short term that long term can have really beneficial effects.
Yeah, I love that. And it's cool to see how you kind of want to not say like give back, but maybe like get involved in ownership in the USL and like kind of pick up where you left off. So that's super exciting to see. And then like speaking of ownership, I'd love to touch on Miller Woods. I know like you just announced it. Did a little bit of research on it myself. Seems like you guys are kind of going like the sports technology, real estate, like middle market businesses. So I'd love to hear from you, like kind of why you started that, what made you kind of tackle like those three buckets, and yeah, if any like future plans with maybe like some companies you're interested in, if you're able to speak on that.
Yeah, I mean, I see the main reason I started is because I wanted to invest in companies and I wanted to do it with my family. Like I want to do it with the people I'm closest with. I want to build, everyone talks about generational wealth. Like that's what everybody wants to build. And so I want to do things with my family. I may not, my goal isn't to become a billionaire. That's never going to be my goal. I don't need $100 million, but what I want to do is make sure my family's comfortable and do things together that's going to make us all feel stable. And so I've always been interested in real estate. I have a couple real estate investments myself, and I love sports. And so, how do I combine a lot of those interests? And when we're talking real estate and sports, you see a lot of stadium anchored mixed use developments that are popping up around the United States, and that's a big focus for a lot of the USL as well, and some of these newer franchises that are coming in. You look at a franchise like Rhode Island that did a really successful development there, stadium and in real estate. And so things like that are what intrigue me. And so that's really where a lot of our focus has been in terms of Miller Woods is looking at opportunities like that looking at sports adjacent opportunities. We looked at a ton of companies that are raising that are products that help athletes or benefit youth soccer player, youth athletes in general. And then from the lower to middle market business opportunities, it's just like we all three of us have a lot of operational experience. We're all entrepreneurs. My mother owned her own business. My sister owns her own business right now. I own my own business. We have a ton of operational experience, and feel like we can provide a ton of value to a lot of companies, mainly local companies that we're going to look at in terms of some of those operational businesses. But there's a lot of benefit that we can provide, and so I want to be able to do that in a way that obviously benefits us, but also benefits the businesses.
When you kind of look at maybe like some of the companies that you're targeting, like are you like are there like intangibles that you're looking for with like within the founders, maybe the operators that you kind of want to like a lot of investors like they don't really invest in the companies, they more so invest in the people. Like is that kind of your strategy or how do you guys kind of think about that when deciding to go with a certain founder, a certain business?
It's a great phrase that I've heard a number of times over the past 4 to 5 months from people who have a ton of more experience in the space than I do. One of my friends from high school, former tech guy, sold his company, did really well, and we sat on a couple calls together, and that was his biggest thing. It was like one of the companies we were looking at. The founders are brothers who know each other really well, know the business really well, and help each other. When one may not have the answer, and another does. Like the little things like that I didn't notice at first, but like that was a big thing that he focused on. Was like the founders are knowledgeable, but like they're good people and they know each other and they work well together. And so like really analyzing people a little bit more is something that I never really did a ton of. And so yeah, it's a huge learning process. I'm not sitting here acting like I'm the expert on things. I've definitely learned a lot over the past year, and have really built up a skill set that I really feel proud of. But I still send deals to more experienced people every single day and ask, hey, what are your thoughts? Like, where do you see the holes, and what can I learn from this? So, and those are the things that I want, other athletes to learn and understand, because there are plenty of opportunities that athletes don't know about, and there are plenty of companies out there that want to work with athletes, and so it's going into the space feeling confident, and the best way to do that is get the reps, and so that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I totally get that. And on the athlete's point, I feel like, I mean, a lot of athletes are getting hip to it now with like getting ownership percentages and like kind of starting their own thing as opposed to just taking endorsements. How do you maybe kind of seeing that, like, do you see that trend kind of continuing for the time being? Like, what do you think about maybe athletes, like a lot of them are starting their own media companies and beverage companies and all this stuff. Like, is that something that you will be looking for in a potential investment?
Think being able to control the narrative is huge. And so being able to have ownership of things that you're working with, like you talk about media companies, yeah, being able to control content and what goes out is huge. I used to have that conversation a lot in the USL, like how do we start to control our own narratives a little bit more? Um, but you look at other companies, and whether it's a product or a service, like being able to have ownership in not just a percentage on the cap table, but like being an operator and providing the value that you can bring, I think is important. And I think that's what a lot of athletes don't necessarily think about as much. It's, for the athletes who have a ton of money, maybe it's just a check and hopefully a good return. But I think more so with athletes like myself who did not make millions, don't have millions to splurge on different investments. It's like, how can I provide value beyond just writing a smaller check? And I think that's what's important for me right now. And I think it's what I want to kind of convey for other athletes who are in similar spaces and want to be in these rooms and want to be a part of these companies. Like there's an opportunity to do so. You just have to figure out where your value lies and how you can leverage that into an ownership stake.
Do you think like your past experience of or not past experience because you're still doing it, but do you think like Prime Focus has anything to do with maybe like how you think about investing in like a certain business? Like obviously you've been an operator and now you're an investor and you're kind of doing both. Like how has Prime Focus maybe helped you prepare for like this next step?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's where I feel like my value lies a lot is my understanding of a lot of different views of things, especially when I talk about like USL ownership. I played in the USL. There aren't very many owners in the USL that can say that. And like, they may have played soccer. They may have played at maybe in the MLS level. You got Josie Altidore, Tim Weah, Chris Richards, right? But they didn't play in the USL, and so that obviously they played at a much higher level. But the USL, understanding the USL is it's different. So I understand that from that perspective. I understand it from a business perspective, having run my own business on a much smaller scale, but also having seen plenty of pro formas, having seen some actual P&Ls, like understanding how these USL teams operate. And I've also had experience in front offices in the USL. So like the running my own business has given me a lot of tools, from a marketing perspective, customer service perspective, from a financial perspective, data management, all of those things. And so I do feel like I have, maybe not expertise in everything, but a clear understanding in those spaces that can provide value. So when I look at one of the biggest things, like when I'm looking at a new company, is understanding where can I provide value? Because I don't, at this point, I don't want to just write checks. We've done that, and I still, like, even with those companies, still feel like I could provide value for them. But like, I want to be a bit more operational and provide that expertise and help a company grow. Because I think I can provide a ton of value in spaces that some companies may not even understand.
Yeah, I love that answer. I think like you hear it's like super important to not only just like write the check, but also actually have like a genuine relationship with someone and kind of like understand their business as a whole, as opposed to just like kind of throwing a dart at a board and like hoping you make money from it and exit from it properly. So yeah, I really like that answer. And like definitely something that like sticks with me. I think like I'm like super curious about Prime Focus because you started it while you were playing, and like when I was like doing a little bit of research, like I know you were in the middle of season and doing that, and you kind of like were struggling to find time between practice and running it. So how did you kind of ultimately make the decision to like, all right, like soccer was good to me, but I kind of want to dive into the business world. I want to make use of my marketing degree. I'm going to get my MBA. Like, when did you kind of make that decision? And do you regret maybe leaving soccer a little too early or maybe leaving it a little too late?
Uh, Life circumstances are
Yeah.
really soccer. I would definitely wasn't done playing. If I played longer, I still be playing. At this point, I, I think the environment I was in, I didn't enjoy, and that kind of soured me a bit on soccer. My daughter was being born at the end of the 2021 season, and so I wanted to, be better prepared for her. I did not want to be, gone every other weekend and not be able to be with her as much. And so there were a number of circumstances and reasons why I retired. But it definitely wasn't because I couldn't keep playing. But I made the decision. I want to dive into the business world. I want to learn more about the business side of sports. I want to take my business full time. I want to see what opportunities are out there, and I won't act like it was the easiest transition. I'm still 5 years on, still transitioning and figuring out, where my exact lane is. But I made the decision. I made it confidently, and there have been ups and downs, and there's going to be, and that's why I'm so focused on helping athletes kind of transition into their next role and what that looks like, whether it's in investing or stepping into the corporate world, whatever it may be. Like, it's going to be an adjustment, and so but that's why I do a lot of the writing that I do on my blog, and figuring out what else I can do there, to help athletes as well, because it's not the easiest thing.
So is giving back like a big part of, your why? Like I feel like there has to be like a why for everything that you do, right? Like why are we having this podcast? Like why are you starting Miller Woods? Like what's kind of your why? Is it just like helping athletes? Like did you want to be helped when you were in that position? Like what's like the main reason that keeps you going?
It's a great question. I've always said like I want people to have a better career than I did. That's one of the reasons why I started Prime Focus Goalkeeping, and that's one of the reasons why I look at something like Miller Woods, to be an example of what guys can do. You don't have to make millions of dollars to be in the sports investment game and sit at some of these tables. I just feel like I've learned a lot. I failed a lot, and I've been successful. And so I want to, take what I've learned and be able, whether it's a goalkeeper, and help them have an easier path to college soccer, pro soccer, or whether it's, in investing, and have these athletes understand, what due diligence really looks like, before they get, thrown in the middle of a deal and they don't really know what's going on. So, yeah, I want people to have, because it's not like we're out here competing against each other anymore. Like, there's enough for all of us out here in terms of this, the investing world, and entrepreneurship and all of that. So, like, I've really had to shift towards an abundance mindset and understand that, like, there's enough for us all out here, and I want to help bring people along as opposed to kind of be a gatekeeper.
Yeah, I think that I mean I'm not an athlete anymore, but definitely something I struggle with, or I wouldn't say used to, 'cause kind of still do, is like comparing myself to other people. So like as an athlete, like if you're comparing yourself to like, you know, the Steph Currys and Saquon investing in Anthropic and like all these like, Mahomes is a franchise owner. Like it's kind of hard to not compare yourself because like you're getting so caught up in the news and stuff. Do you kind of struggle with that, or you kind of just focus on like your investments in like Charlotte and like taking care of your family?
Wake up every single day and I ask myself, am I doing the right thing? Because I have a ton of successful friends, and I'm
Yeah.
extremely, proud of all of them and what they've done, and whether it's in real estate or in sports. I have plenty of friends who have, friends who played in the World Cup. I have friends who've been successful and won MLS Cup. Like, I have plenty of friends who have been more successful than me in soccer, in business, some would say in life. So, like, it's not something where I, like, can't see that and I'm like, oh no, like, where am I? It's like, I understand where I'm at right now, and I understand where I want to be, and I know that I am confident enough and capable of getting there. It's just I have to, my road is different than what everyone else's is, and so I think that's a lot of the struggle with, like, athletes when you retire is, like, you feel like you're behind. You feel like you're trying to step into the corporate world, and you may be 32, 33 years old when everyone else is, got 10 to 15 years of experience, and now you feel behind. It's like, I try, it's a human nature to compare yourself, but I try not to, do that, because I feel like I'm on my own path and I feel confident on the path that I'm going.
Yeah, I think like that I've needed to hear that too, honestly. I think like as long as you have a plan and you execute it and you know where you want to be, I think like that's just like the bottom line, and can't compare yourself to other people. Like everyone runs their own race.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I that's like that was great. Super informative. I do have, or I guess me and Ellis do have some quick fire questions that we just like wanna rip and get your opinion on, like ranging from sports to business. Ellis, if you wanna, I know you wanna ask one.
I do. I do. What I will say, you mentioned you played with some very good players. I'm a little curious, like who is the best player at any level that you played with or against? And what is the highest level, I
Um,
guess, that they played in their career?
I mean, I've played with a couple former Premier League players, Premier League champions. You asked me the best player. He was on the 2021 Shaw Independence team, and his name, I'm drawing a blank. He played for Newcastle. So on that team we had Gabriel Overton, we had Christian Fuchs.
Wow.
And I don't know why I'm blanking on his name, but he played for Newcastle, and he was probably, like, in terms of just like pure technique. The guy never lost the ball. He would put the ball in the back of the net and barely even hit it. Like, his accuracy was insane. But I thought he was a really good player. So played with a lot of good players, but he stands out the most.
Yeah, I love hearing professional players talk about that. That's like my favorite thing to ask. But also, was Fuchs on that Leicester City team that won the Prem that year?
He
Or
was.
you, wow, I was like, that's like
Wow.
my favorite season. I'm an Arsenal fan, so it wasn't too fun to watch them
I'm
get
sorry.
second that year. But
I mean, you're used to it at this point.
this
Do
year,
you
it's this year.
do you
Yeah,
watch the
Uh,
Prem, or are you a Prem guy, or what? Are you
I
like
do.
watching any
Yeah.
soccer?
I'm a Liverpool fan. I got the Liverpool scarf
Yeah,
back
it's,
never
there.
walk
I'm
alone.
I went to this Liverpool Tottenham one right here. That's the match I went to in 2011. But yeah, I'm a Liverpool fan, and I watch the Prem. I played fantasy Prem and things like that. So, I don't necessarily keep up with it as much as I used to, but definitely still a fan.
yeah.
Also, like,
You go ahead, Ellis.
yeah, I was gonna say, growing up, like, of course you played soccer. Was there any other sports that you played growing up? Or, because I know a lot of people, once their season's over, they like playing other sports. Like when soccer season's over, they get into football, basketball, anything like that. or were you more wanting to still play soccer in the off season, or was that your time to just get away a little bit and play some other sports?
So I played basketball up until ninth grade, and I haven't told this story a lot, but I stopped playing basketball. I loved basketball. I just wasn't as good at basketball, and I remember eighth grade year. I played for a school called Providence Day School here in Charlotte, and the Curry brothers, Steph and Seth, went to Charlotte Christian, which was right down the road. And Seth, the younger brother, we played against him in middle school. He was a year younger than me, and he lit me up. Uh, 30
One
plus,
of many.
like um, just absolutely dropping everything on me, and I just like at that point I was like, I'm not good enough for this. So, yeah, once I hit high school, I was like, no, I'm probably just gonna focus on soccer.
People sleep on North Carolina hoops. I mean, like obviously they know like Duke and UNC, but like the high school scene is pretty good. A lot of good players come out of there.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I grew up watching Steph,
yeah,
Anthony Morrow. Like, I remember we saw Carmelo Anthony. Like, there was a ton of great basketball players. The Plumlee brothers. Like, yeah, there was a lot.
that's a great story. I love that. Well, my question is a little less exciting, but I think something that you would still enjoy. I'm curious, like I'm really interested in like the athlete mentality. Like a lot of professional athletes that maybe I haven't like spoken to, but like I've seen from afar, like they're just like kind of wired differently, like mentally, and then obviously it translates well to anything they do outside of sports. Like you talk about like, the resilience, the confidence, being coachable, things like that. Like, do you kind of agree with that sentiment of like athletes make really good employees, founders, like a lot of companies like really look for those skills. So I'm curious to hear your take.
Yeah, I do. I would agree to it to an extent. I mean, I agree. Like I feel like I can be successful in any role that I take on simply because I understand how hard I'm going to work, what I'm going to do to learn, and I want to compete and be the best, right?
Mhm.
So, those are some intangible things that like a lot of employees simply just want to get a paycheck versus I'm going to
Yep.
show that I want to hit the top. But I do think that there is a part of being an athlete that you fall short on some maybe like personal skills or there's things that you still have to learn. One of them for me was empathy and learning understanding, and that's more like an interpersonal thing that I had to learn. You know, over the years, over the past several years of stepping away from the sport. But I definitely think that there's a ton of just skills that we learn as athletes that are easily translatable, but it's figuring out how to tell that story, when you're in a job interview or once you get into the actual role and figuring out how that translates to make yourself successful in a new environment.
Love that. Love that. Ellis, I don't know if you have any more questions.
Yeah, no, I
Rapid
know we're getting
fire.
close on time here almost. So I'm still curious. Like I know that you said there's some struggle, especially when you got to college, but not necessarily getting the minutes that you thought you deserved as well as your pro career. What's one thing you would tell younger Brandon at that time who wasn't necessarily getting the exact minutes he wanted that you know now? Whether it's about goalkeeping, whether it's just about mentality, overall life.
Honestly, it's like, and it's one of my biggest things that I tell a lot of people now. It's just like be a good teammate. It's not your time. It's not always going to be your time, and I think I struggled with that because it was always my time at youth soccer. Like I was, I remember, I wasn't the star, but on my team, I was the goalkeeper. I was the man, and so it's not always your time. Your time may come, but like being a good teammate is so much more beneficial in the long run. And I think it has a lot of benefit outside of just like being successful on the field. You build good relationships within organizations. You can have opportunities at a higher level. I do think like when teams are making decisions on like a third string goalkeeper, it's not always about who's the most talented. It's literally about who's going to be a good locker room guy. You hear that all the time about like
Yep.
about locker room guys and then people who provide in the locker room. And like if you're not a good teammate, if because you're always worried about you, like who when am I going to get my time? I think it can limit you. And I feel like I definitely had some of that in my own career where I don't necessarily feel like I was the greatest teammate all the time, and I don't think I really nurtured or built the relationships that I could have to be more successful.
Yeah, that's That's a fantastic answer. I think like being a good teammate and just like being a good person will bring you so much farther than just like being good at the sport. Like you're
Hmm.
only good for a certain amount of time, but if you preserve those relationships, like you'll go farther in life. Like everything's about who you know, your relationships with people, and then like how people perceive you and how they
Yeah.
talk about your behind your back. So
I mean, at a
really,
certain point, like, uh, and I mean, I say this at the college level, the professional level, like at a certain point, everyone's talented, you
yep,
know.
Yeah.
So like,
100%.
what is your differentiator? I talk about it with my goalkeepers all the time. Like, what is your differentiator? Everyone's gonna make saves. Everyone at the college level can make saves. Everyone at the professional level can claim a cross, well, for the most part. Everyone else at the professional level
You'd hope
is,
so.
is competent with their feet. But like, what is your differentiator? And for a lot of you look at, there's plenty of guys who have made really good careers being a backup or a third string in MLS, and they, well into six figures throughout
Hmm.
their career annually because they're good locker room people. They're talented, don't get me wrong, but they have that intangible that helps a team get to the next level because they know their role. And so like that's the
Yep.
biggest thing is know your role when you're during your time, right? And my role in my third year was to be a third string goalkeeper and push the other two goalkeepers, and I did that really well. And so you can know your role and play it well, and you're gonna have a long career in whatever you do.
Yeah, moral of the story, just be a good person and everything else
Exactly.
will
Yep.
come to you.
Exactly.
Brandon, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
Definitely
Thank you for
dropped a
hopping
lot
on.
of game on us, and yeah, really appreciate your time and good luck with, all your future business endeavors.
Yeah, I appreciate you all having me on. I love what you're building, and I'll definitely be following on.
Awesome. Thank you so
Yep.
much.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right.